Welcome back to Women Living Intentionally. If you missed part 1, please be sure to check it out on our YouTube page, which is Women of 4D, or on our podcast platform, which is Women Lit, L-I-T.
And so, Jackie, I agree 100%. The generational differences and some of the acknowledgments that we are making about both how we were raised, but then how we want to raise our children. Right. You need help with that. You gotta talk to somebody.
But you make a good point. It's like, how do we know we're okay? It's like, I guess because we're functioning every day, you know, and we're not having like jumped off a cliff. I mean, but like, how do we truly know we're okay?
I think that's a good point that you both bring up, because of that, it makes me think about, are we really operating in functional dysfunction? Because, to the fact that, our parents, they are really convinced that the way that they raised us is the right way, and there's no doubt in their mind. And so, like you said, Jackie, you try to tell your mom, well, maybe not this time, Mom. But in her head, she's like, I raised you, didn't I? Didn't you turn out okay? So in her mind, there's no wrong to it. But I think what you said, LaToya, you said that you mentioned as it related to the class that the session that you attended, you said you mentioned something about natural intelligence. So that put me in the mindset of, I know when I raised my children, I really felt, totally responsible for everything that was in their space. And so I felt like my obligation, so that they can be these perfect people, was to make sure that I gave them A through Z, and I was not to skip anything in between, because I needed them to be these perfect people. But at the same time, times have changed, and it's not the same, because even as I was growing up, everything my mom said to me, it was etched in stone, and no one could tell me differently. But then I grew up. And then I started to figure things out on my own. And so where it took me maybe 20 or 20 plus years to grow up, unfortunately, our children are growing up a lot more soon. And I think it has a lot to do with what you mentioned, LaToya. They have access in the palms of their hands. Literally. And if they don't have access to it, they know somebody who does. So, in that regard, like you mentioned early on as well, we don't get an instruction manual. So, so we have this time change, the generational difference. Mom is always right, no matter what she says. And so we have all of this that we're trying to, figure out along with these growing people. And also, I think you mentioned, Jackie, that, now there are these little people, but they have feelings like grown people. If I remember my mother saying quite often, you don't do what I do, you do as I say. And she made me feel like my feelings were out the window, they were obsolete, they didn't count. But, I didn't raise my children that way. So I'm just, I'm just going back to how I was raised and how I would like for my children to be raised. And then how do we function in the world that we're in now? So it's a very tender spot. So I think that, if we have to reach out to outside systems, it's okay. Because all in all, we want to make sure that whatever support we can offer our children to help them be the best people that they need to be, not because we want them to be a certain way, but the people that they need to be, it is necessary. And I think it does start, like both of you mentioned, with their mental health. And I think a lot of times we overlook that. We don't even consider that. We're so busy parenting. We're saying, hey, you do it like I say, do it. And that's just the bottom line. Well, we have to understand what may be the underlying situation, because as you mentioned, Jackie, earlier, it hadn't always been this way. So we need to try to figure this out, because I don't like the way this is going. And so as our children get older, we still want what's best for them, but we have to figure out how to best help them while they're trying to be the best people that they need to be.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate both of your insight, and as it relates to, trying to be healthy and raise healthy children, because ultimately, isn't that really what we want?
Yes, absolutely.
So, physically, mentally, and I think for me, it's important that we try to give our kids the best possible start, because they're facing so many things
Right.
outside of our homes. We want to protect them. We want to give them what they need so they can be whole people. And so, but you know what though? In order for them to be whole people, we also have to be whole people as moms. So in order for us to help them through, we also have to be helped through too. So I would even ask both of you, and I'll start with you, Jackie, how do you, or what do you do to, I'm going to say it like this, keep your sanity?
Oh, wow. I have not been consistent with it. Well, he loves going to my mom's house. So like every Friday he goes over there and he'll like stay through Sunday. So I have like the weekend to myself for the most part. But I go over my mom's house like Saturday and Sunday. So I will have like nights to myself. So I can just like watch TV and just
Unwind.
Yeah, not be bothered while I'm watching TV and that type of thing. And I may go get my nails done and get my hair done and that type of thing. So, and then sometimes I'll take like a girls trip every now. Well, that was pre-COVID, but do like girls trips every now and then. So just a few things, not too much.
Well, but it sounds like it's just enough to keep you, in a place where you can go back the next day and try it again.
Yeah, yeah,
It can be difficult. So would you what experiences would you have for yourself, LaToya, that keeps you in a good space so that you feel like, today maybe not was a good day, but hey, because I've taken the time to make sure that I'm okay, then, I see hope in tomorrow.
See hope in tomorrow is such a strong statement, because I think that's what we need. I was a teacher for a time, and I would always say, like, if today did not work well, there's always tomorrow. You can start again. I think sometimes as moms, we don't give ourselves that same kind of grace. There's always tomorrow. But I try similarly to Jackie. So one of the things where I am now, as a mom and as a co-parent, is we now have a successful co-parenting relationship. And so my son does go with his dad 2 nights. And so those are nights. What I have to do is make sure I spend them on me and not necessarily working or, running errands or laundry, which are good things. Sometimes knowing that the laundry is done is a relief, so like there is a place for that, but that's not always the time to do that. If I want to do nothing, do nothing. If I want to catch up on a million little things, like watching TV, that is very much okay, which is something I've not always allowed myself to do, is because I always have to be doing something to be productive. But rest is an action. And so, I can be productive by resting. And so that has been very important. When I was at a phase in my relationship where I did not have that consistent support, being okay with things not being perfect. So if the house was not clean, if I got a shower, we good, changing, my standards of what is okay. That was something that was extremely beneficial and important to me, is prioritizing what is my must have. Like if I can't handle, this thing or this thing, as long as I get a shower, today was a success. So changing your definition of success, especially when he was younger. And then when we are together, if I'm not able to get, a break, going outside, even if it's just on a walk, fresh air does a lot. And so I would say trying to create your sanctuary in the midst of, if you can't get away, doing those things that do bring you joy, so that you can catch a little bit of hope in there, because sometimes it can feel very lonely, when you're trying to figure this thing out. So making time for that is very important.
And I think it's a good point that both of you make. And it sounds like whatever you choose for yourself for that moment, you're very intentional about it. So whether for you, LaToya, that you choose to do nothing except rest, you have to be intentional. And like you said, you had to learn that if this one task is not done, then it's still okay. It doesn't mean that everything is perfect, and it doesn't mean that everything has to be perfect, but it's perfect right now because this is what I choose. and that's okay. And so you had to allow yourself an opportunity to be okay in the space that you found yourself in so that you can maintain that okayness.
Exactly.
So, and then
I have to say, Latoya, I have been okay with doing nothing. Like I can leave. I'm okay with leaving dishes in the sink. I'm okay with leaving clothes in the dryer. I'm for real. It's just like some days I'm like, I'm not doing a thing today, and I'm okay with it. Yes.
But you know what? I think
it's like it's different when you do not have help. When it's just you, and there's like somebody, no one else is coming in to help you. I'm like, you know what? I'm okay. It'll get done eventually. It'll be all right. So.
But you know what? I think that's important because I think that we think in order for us to do something, we have to actually be doing something. And that's not the case. We have to be okay with where we are so that we can continue to be okay with our children that we're responsible for. So whether that's actually doing something in motion or just resting yourself, that says a lot, because I always say anyway, if you're not taking care of you, then really how can you take care of anybody else? Especially if you're in a dynamic where it really is only you in the house that you live in. Now, of course, if you have the support outside the house, you still have some obligation inside your house. So it's really still only you. So if you're not taking care of your wholeness and yourself, that's a big deal. So I commend you both in setting that time aside for self-care.
Just to piggyback off of you, Tish, I would definitely say the same thing, because it's just kind of like, if you're not resting, then you're always busy.
Right.
And when you're always busy, you burn yourself out. So now you're snappy at your child. You're trying to do all this extra stuff because, as again, like you all were saying earlier, as Black women, we're taught to push through, get through it, strong Black women, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, you need a break. And if you don't get that break, things start to unravel, and you don't want it to unravel on your kids. Because I feel like, it's already a situation as it is, whether, good, bad, or indifferent, just the dynamic. So you're trying your best to hold everything together. So rest is definitely, that's something that I had to learn myself. You're trying to do this, go here, do this, run here. And before you know it, you're so burned out, you don't even have time to watch a movie with your child or do something so small, and you don't want to miss the opportunity. And so rest is definitely important. I have learned now as she's gotten older that I'm like, woo child, like, like, we good. I have a 15-year-old, so it's a little different for me. But they still need you as a mom. And if you're not healthy as a mom, then there's no way you could, coach them through life or make sure that you are adequate for them when they need you the most. So Tish, I definitely agree with you with that one, because it's definitely, it can be a challenge.
All right. So this support system in this village, however we ended up with it, whether it was something that we chose, in advance, or something that we found ourselves in, ultimately we understand that in order for this to come full circle, we need each other. And so, because we need each other, it's those pieces that come together that ultimately make it work. So even if you're finding it through other friendships or newly found friendships or organizations that you have something in common with, those are things that are important to, keep you at your peace. And so, when we find ourselves in those type of situations, and we expect it to be a certain way, it doesn't end up being that way. We have to do what we need to do for the best interest of our children. So again, I commend you all for, being so open and honest, because, someone else needs to understand that it's not just me. And sometimes we feel like it is just me. And I know a couple of times we've mentioned, even on this segment or this call, give me a break. I need a minute. And I know with me, when I found myself in a situation where I no longer had the help because of a divorce, I'm like, I would not do anything. I felt guilty for doing
Yeah.
anything for myself. I'm like, wait, my kids aren't here. And, like you said, LaToya, I was good with taking a shower, but that was like the best part of the day. But I called it quits after that because, I mean, and you guys can share with me too, in the moments that you find yourself in your break time, however you choose your break, did you have to get to a point where you had to convince yourself it's okay, I can take care of myself, I just don't have to take care of my child, but I can take care of me too? Because, and the reason I pose that question to you is because it took me a minute, and it took me some time to get there. I had to literally convince myself over time, it's okay for me to do something that I like, because I was so used to doing things that my children like. So I wasn't just, I think I kind of lost my own self. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. I kind of lost my own self. So when they weren't around in the beginning, when it first started that they were not around, I found myself saying, what do I do now? So I had to give myself permission to still do things that I like to do. I had to remind me to do things that I like to do, because I I think I was losing my identity because I had become a mom, and I was a mom, but I was still me, and I was still a woman, and I still like to do things for myself. But I had to convince myself it's okay. You can still do what you really like to do. So did you ever feel that in your situation at all, where you felt like, okay, it's okay for me to do the things that I really like to do and enjoy without my child?
I haven't had that. Only thing that I struggle to do is shop for me alone.
Okay.
If I buy something, I always buy something for him. Now, that's the one thing I still do, but I still do things just for me alone, but I just haven't broke that little, oh, well, he might need something kind of thing while I'm shopping. But yeah, that's about it.
Say, similarly, I think I was able to early on grab hold to the fact that I can go get, a pedicure if I want to. Like, I was able to do that quickly. But what a change for me though, Tish, that I had to realize is that when he was with me, I did not have to be super mom, and I did not have to like have my day planned from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to ensure that it was the most engaging and enlightening time. It's okay for us to do nothing. You know what I mean? Like that, I had to like own that. Renee knows I'll post it on Facebook. I'll say, today was water play, otherwise known as washing dishes. Like, we're going to wash dishes as our activity for today. So it's like I had to let go of like what I expected our time to be and what I wanted, and that everyday life is okay, and I don't have to have everything super planned or all these activities to go to and do, that we could just be, because I guess I want to also teach him that rest is a thing. You know what I mean? I want to model that for him as well. Like, I'm intentional on our mornings that we don't have to go anywhere. Like, hey, this is a morning we can go slow today, and just making sure that he knows that we don't have to rush, and we don't have to eat breakfast at the same time. We can go slower, in how we engage on these days when we have that opportunity. So I'm hoping that I'm modeling to him, that every day doesn't have to be super planned, for us to still have fun and enjoy, what life looks like. Another thing I wanted to mention, that we talked about having grace, for ourselves as moms, when we may miss the mark. I don't even gonna say may miss, when we do miss the mark, is owning something that I don't think our parents did, was the apology and apologizing to our kids.
That's good.
When we miss the mark, because I think that is also freeing. It's like we don't have to have all the answers, and we don't have to do it right every time. Right. And if you develop a relationship with your child where you can own it and say, hey, mommy messed up. Right. I'm sorry. That also takes out a different kind of weight from you. Like, we have a relationship where I can say that, and I'm also modeling for you that it's okay, to not get it right. And when you do mess up, you go to the people that you love and you apologize. And so I think that's another form of mental wellness, is like establishing that connection, and like, I didn't get it right and I'm sorry. Next time I will do better. Now I'll handle it differently.
You know, and I appreciate that, because that's, even as you were reflecting, I'm kind of thinking about what I remember about being raised. And a lot of times I didn't hear that from my parents, but I did try to make it a practice to offer to. But you know what, Jackie, that's because they were always right, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think as we learn to grow, you know, one of the things I even tell my children, I have adult children now, but I always say to them, even as they were, you know, growing up, and I used to say to them, you know, as you grow, allow me to grow with you.
Mm-hmm.
This is new for me, so allow me to grow with you. And so to your point, Latoya, so apologizing, it is a big deal, because I think it teaches them, just as you mentioned, hey, if I'm wrong, I'm okay with saying I'm wrong, and it's okay for me to let you know that, and still we can move on. But first of all, acknowledging, because you don't want to raise kids that are, you know, they just don't care about anything. So we do want to teach them to be accountable and to say when something's not okay, and, you know, own up to it, because that's part of me trying to show you how to be responsible. And then I think another thing that you mentioned that I so appreciate, when you said, hey, when we spend time together, you know, I slow things down. It's not, it doesn't have to be so busy throughout the day. And so when I hear you say that, I hear you saying with the time that you're spending with your son, we are embracing this moment. And so for someone that has had young children, and I have children at the age that they are now, time flies.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, although we have all these things that are happening with our children as they're growing, some things we don't want to happen, but things just happen in their lives that, you know, we don't care for, whatever the case may be. But at the same time, they grow so quickly. We want to intentionally embrace the moment, because not just with our children, but time, you can't get it back.
Right.
And so if you miss that moment, before you know it, they're going to be, you know, gone off somewhere, and, you know, pretty soon, and hopefully it doesn't be, but pretty soon they're going to be living their own lives, and they're not going to think about you as much right now. And, you know, so we want to be able to build that relationship. And I think it's important to build relationships with our children. So to allow them to hear you say, hey, I apologize. I can appreciate that. To hear you say, it's okay for us to do nothing. I can appreciate that, because it's very intentional about the space that you're in. And so even when you mentioned, Jackie, that, hey, I had to, you know, whenever I went shopping for myself, I would also shop for him. Do you still do that, by the way, or have you learned that it's okay not to pick something up?
I'm trying to think. You know what? Probably not, if I have to think about it. Yeah.
Well, I have a question in regard to that, because, you know, as you spoke, I kind of related to that. So when you pick up something for him, is it something that you've convinced yourself that he needs, or have you decided that he truly needs it?
It could be like a box of candy. I mean, so it's not even. It's not. It's. I'm just doing something, you know.
You know, ultimately, I think it's about, you know, we just really want to put our kids in the best space possible. And that's, you know, we're laughing about it, but even if it is a box of candy, even if it is and I forget how you referenced it, Latoya, but you said this water play, it's really you watching this. So we want to still try to create good experiences for them, because, you know, we love our children. We love our children. And so in order for us to love on our children as whole as we want them to be, we also have to love on ourselves. So I appreciate you ladies for sharing and, you know, being so open with us and talking about, you know, what it takes and what you've experienced in your own individual villages. So let me ask you a question. So outside of mom, you have anything going on that you would like to share with us, exciting in your personal time that you have as it relates to businesses that you have for yourself, or anything that you're engaged in that you just want to share? And I'll start with you, Jackie.
I am really not a business woman. I'm not one of these people that have like a side hustle. I don't, it's like, I'm like, God, what's my purpose? But I do work for my church. So I do that, but I'm not one of these people with a side hustle. So no, I don't have anything.
Well, you just keep being great. So that's your hustle right now. Just
absolutely, absolutely.
We appreciate that. What about you, LaToya?
Let's see, what do we have going on? So my 9 to 5, if that's even really a thing, I work
right,
with
really?
I lead a nonprofit organization called She Built the City that's focused on igniting interest in the construction and trades for women and young girls. And so that's how I spend most of my time. I'm also a small business owner, Stay Ready Consulting Solutions that helps supports other small businesses with capacity building initiatives, cultural competency, really is having a second thought partner, in developing ideas. And so if I have free time, I'm doing things around, consulting, looking at some real estate investment opportunities.
Okay.
I may even start a school. I don't know, Tish. I don't know what's coming up. I keep you posted.
I love the way you said that, and I love She Built This City. That's a whole lot within just that. She built this city. So, but you do sound pretty busy. So I don't know. This is what I'm doing right now, and it's something else. We'll just figure it out. But you know what? You almost have to, kind of like our motherhood. We just kind of got to figure it out as we go, and it is no right or wrong way to do it. We just have to do what we know is best at the time and pray that,
right.
it all turns out well.
Yeah, exactly.
All the time.
Because unfortunately, if we continue to measure ourselves by other people's standards or metrics, we may for real really get it wrong. But if we always do what's in our heart, because these are our families, with the support that we have and with the systems that we have in place for our children and us as we are helped along this process, I think we'll be okay. But we got to remember, we're not in it by ourselves.
Right.
And so we have people that are available to us. We just have to remember, even if they don't, volunteer, it's okay for us to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm still here and I need you today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Toya, really quick, how can we find you on social media?
You can follow me. Thank you for asking. You can follow me on Instagram, Stay Ready Consulting Solutions is the best way to find me. And same on Twitter. Thank you.
So we definitely really appreciate you all hopping on the line. It was a really exciting time being with you all this evening. It's just kind of like when you can relate to people, you're like Tish said earlier, you're like, I'm not alone. Like, Lord, I'm not alone. Like, thank you, Jesus. When I get off this call, I'm calling Jackie, I'm calling Toya, because we're gonna talk about this bad. But no, seriously, we really appreciate you taking the time out, aside from mommy stuff, just to join the call to help. Like Tish said, who knows who's watching? You could be that, that person who's like, thank you, I needed to hear that. Or, you just never know who you might reach doing these types of things. So again, we really appreciate you all taking the time out to join us. For all of our viewers, if you don't know anything about Women of 4D, we also have a page, social media pages. We are on Twitter and on Facebook, Women of 4D. We're also on IG or Instagram, women_of_4D. You can follow us, like us, love us, whatever you want to do. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Women of 4D. So again, we appreciate you, ladies. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We can't thank you enough. We wish you well in all your endeavors, raising your sons. We know that they will be the best men. Who knows what they might be the next president, coming up years down the road. Who knows? But we're like, we interviewed their mommies one day. So I'm like, give us a shout out. But we do appreciate you all. And I'm going to turn it back to Tish to close us out.
Well, as Renee said, we thank you for your time, and we are really glad to have you, and nice meeting both of you. It was such a joy speaking with you. So, you know, of course, Jackie, you mentioned you chose to, you know, to have your son. And of course, LaToya, you had your son with, you know, your spouse. And of course, you were ended up in a co-parenting situation. But no matter how we got there, you know, our ultimate goal is to take care of our children the best that we can. In the midst of all that, we also want to take care of ourselves. So no matter what, ladies, always take care of you. But we do want to leave you with this, because what it amounts to is the support system that you have that makes our circle complete. So however you find that support system, if it works for you, hold on to it, because ultimately it takes all of us to make it work.
Right.
So I will say this: the fabric of family is carefully woven. It can be abrasive at times, but it is a strategic covering that is carefully patterned. The fabric of family is a patchwork of intertwined threads that consist of people that are either given to us or chosen by us. Nonetheless, it gives us hope, comfort, protection, and encouragement. So embrace your covering. You are not alone. Your village, your support system ensures the security and destiny of your family. So thank you for joining us. You've been with Women Living Intentionally.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye, ladies.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.